Welcome back to Tales of Faith, a podcast on the Narrative Lectionary. I am Louise Ochart, and my pronouns are she, her.
And I'm AJ Ochart. My pronouns are he, him. This is episode 405 for the 17th Sunday after Pentecost on October 5th, 2025, and World Communion Sunday, though we are recording on September 23rd. So if all the evangelicals have been raptured or something else major has happened between then and now, when we record and when you listen to this, obviously we can't and will not be addressing it.
Today we're talking about Exodus 16, 1-18, and we'll be using the New Revised Standard Version Updated Edition, unless otherwise noted. So let's get the context.
Context is pretty easy for this one, so between this week and next week, we are passing over a huge amount of time. In this one, it's maybe a year. So last time we talked about God speaking to Moses, sending Moses to Egypt. Moses goes to Egypt with Aaron, goes to Pharaoh, says, "Let my people go." Pharaoh is not amenable to the situation. There's back and forth. There are these 10 strikes against Egypt, or plagues, and eventually Pharaoh lets them go. They go across the Red Sea. The sea falls over the Pharaoh and his army. All of the horses obviously live. And then the people are free. So now they've been wandering in the desert for a few days. And
they don't even last a few days.
Yeah, it's
start complaining.
Yes.
I mean, to be fair, I would be complaining in about 3 hours in the desert.
Glamping is definitely
not like be hot.
Not something that the Israelites are doing necessarily.
Yeah.
This is totally aside, but for a humorous perspective of this, the same people who produced The Chosen, which
not humorous,
but the same production company is doing a mockumentary style show about Moses and the Israelites in the wilderness. The pilot came out last year. The new ones are coming out in October, I think. It's pretty good. It's very tongue in cheek. Anyways, great. Let's get to our text.
All right. So section 1 is Exodus 16, 1-3. The good old days. The whole congregation of the Israelites set out from Elim and came to the wilderness of Sin, which is located between Elim and Sinai. On the 15th day of the second month after they had departed from the land of Egypt, the whole congregation of the Israelites complained against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. The Israelites said to them, "If only we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt when we sat by the pots of meat and ate our fill of bread, for you have brought us into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger." That is a dramatic reenactment for you.
That is. Those of you who are familiar with church leadership are familiar with this type of... remember when we used to sing the hymns from the red hymnal, stuff like that.
Good old 1927 prayer book.
Yeah, there you go. It's the wilderness of Sin.
Sign. I mean, it's
like
spelled
the same.
sin. I wasn't sure.
It's spelled sin, but Sin. This is where Sinai comes from.
Gotcha.
Mountain of Sin, and it's also. I'm sorry. It's been 1 month. So it's the 15th day of the second month, which is on the 15th day is the day of preparation on the first month of Passover. So now we're 1 month from Passover.
Solid.
Well, I mean, they give us the timestamp, so that's how so they've been in the wilderness for not quite a month. It's been more than a few days, so
Right.
but it's been a month since they.
But in a
prepared
month,
for
we
a
have forgotten about slavery
Uh-huh.
and being whipped and
Yeah, the
having our
whole
babies killed.
right, the whole
For a month, but I'm done.
Yeah, the
Restoring.
yeah, that's what it is. Restoring of what happened in Egypt. They're remembering sitting around pots of meat and eating
And
their fill of bread.
Did not happen.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the
Take things that did not happen for 200.
the menu for enslaved people in Egypt, but I imagine it was probably not as much meat and bread as they wanted.
Yeah.
And even if it was, the payoff was they were enslaved. You know, this is not a good thing. But again, this is so human that we look back and remember we always look backwards in with rose-colored glasses.
Yes.
We remember how good it was, and it's always selective. We are always remembering the things that were good, sure, and completely forgetting the things that were not.
Yeah, that's why we tell mothers, "Oh, you'll miss these days." I will not. I will not miss the nights and nights and nights of not sleeping. Will I miss my baby? Yes. Won't miss the bad parts. One of my very favorite lines from one play I've done many, many wonderful plays, but this play called Sweat. One of my very favorite lines is "Nostalgia is a disease," because it makes us only remember the good stuff, and that's great. Like we can look back and not, but then we forget all of the bad stuff and we restory things in our minds. We look back at the 50s and say, well, that was wonderful then. If you were a white male, decent education, and for a very specific set of people, it was fine. For the entire rest of the population, we have forgotten what it was really like. And I think that's, very much what the Israelites are doing. There may have been Israelites that had plenty to eat and bread
probably,
and, not the majority. And even then, they were still slaves.
I hadn't thought about that. That there was probably some sort of stratification of this culture.
Yeah, because
sure, there were some people.
Anytime you have an oppressed people, there is still a hierarchy even within the oppression, and those people are, even though they were oppressed, because they were still higher than this group.
House slaves and field slaves. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, other than that, yes, it is this very it was great, and now this thing is terrible, and so we need to go back to when it was great again.
Oh wait, does that sound familiar? So they want to make Israel great again. Yep. Okay. We're just gonna. There you go. Anything else?
No, I'm sure it was not lovely.
Right.
I do not like being hot, and I am not fun around to be. I'm not fun to be around when I'm hot and sweaty and annoyed. But I'd still choose.
You're going to be annoyed if you're hot.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd still choose that over slavery.
Yeah. Another interesting thing about what they say is that they wanted to have died by the hand of the Lord.
Yeah.
Right. Again, a lot of these strikes against Egypt also affected the Israelites, but they were saved from most of these things. So it's sort of like, if only we had died like those Egyptians, that would have been fine. We wouldn't have had to deal with this anymore. But yeah. So nostalgia is a disease. Maybe that should have been the should have named it that.
Such a great line.
Yeah.
I actually need to look up the full line, but it's a great line.
All right, section 2, Exodus 16, 4-5, a test. Then the Lord said to Moses, I am going to rain bread from heaven for you, and each day the people shall go out and gather enough for that day. In that way I will test them, whether they will follow my instruction or not. On the 6th day, when they prepare what they bring in, it will be twice as much as they gather on other days. So here's the setup. We're going to hear this a couple of more times, sort of relating how exactly I think it's going to be Aaron and Moses telling the people and then what they actually do with it. But the opening instructions. And specifically that this is presented as a test.
It's an open book quiz, guys.
Right. It's an
told you exactly how to pass. You can read the notes.
Right. It's a very clear sort of teaching thing, right? Yeah. Testing is definitely this theme throughout the Hebrew scriptures. The sort of, I'm going to present this situation in which you need to act in an appropriate manner. Yeah. And I'm even going to, with this, I'm going to tell you what you're supposed to do. And if you don't do it, then you have failed the test. It's a real simple. It's like,
setting up the expectation.
Well, you've been telling me about the kiddos, like, just draw a picture of your family. That's it.
That's it. That's the only thing you need to do.
Right.
Why are there now 13 children in this picture?
Right.
You don't have 13 siblings. This should have been a 3-person picture. Yeah. Draw something that starts with the letter O. Does water start with O? No.
It's like that easy of a test. This is not a difficult test. And a couple of other things to be mindful of as we're thinking about this. This is a daily test. Mm-hmm. It is daily. We'll get to it. Daily bread. Does that sound familiar? Yes. 6th day. That's important. We'll think about that a little bit as it goes on. And I'm seeing if they're going to follow my instructions or not. We may remember that word instruction in Hebrew is Torah, right? This is part of Torah. This is part of instruction. This is part of I'm going to tell you what to do, and you need to do it.
You do it.
Right, you need to do it. And if you don't do it, there'll be consequences. They're not significant consequences, but we'll try again tomorrow. It'll be fine.
And it is a test that is so key to human nature, right? Because as we have often talked about, it is human nature to take more than what you need. It is human nature to save up and be miserly and to gather more than you can consume because you're afraid you might not get as much as that other person. You might, there is the chance you might not get enough. And God is saying, no, you just gather what you need, just get enough, and that's enough.
Right.
That is enough. Enough is enough. And you need to just live into that. We don't need to gorge ourselves. We don't need to have excess. We need to leave some for the others. We need to, be respectful and caring and all of these things are being tested in this one, just take what you need.
Yep. Yeah, there's so much tied up in this test. Yeah, this is a really, really pivotal one.
And so easy to fail.
Very easy to fail. Yeah.
And so easy to pass.
Right.
I mean, it's both. It's really not that hard to just take what you need.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Let me do section 3.
Section 3, complaining against the Lord. So Moses and Aaron said to all the Israelites, "In the evening you shall know that it was the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt. And in the morning you shall see the glory of the Lord, because he has heard your complaining against the Lord. For what are we that you complain against us?" And Moses said, "When the Lord gives you meat to eat in the evening, and your fill of bread in the morning, because the Lord has heard the complaining that you utter against him, what are we? Your complaining is not against us, but against the Lord."
So they're giving this instruction, right? And there's this reminder of, why are you complaining against us? God has freed you. God has liberated you from Egypt. God has brought you to this place. Part of this part of this test is to trust that God will provide for them through this time. But you're complaining, again, especially if we're thinking about this completely restoried complaining of, wasn't it great back in Egypt when we could eat our fill? Your complaint is literally, I wish God had killed me then,
Right.
so I wouldn't be hot and sweaty in the wilderness now. So get a bit of a sort of diffusing or a deflecting of this complaint. Like, if you can complain, sure, but you're complaining ultimately against God, not against us.
It's a little bit of don't shoot the messenger, but also an acknowledgement of, like, we did not save you, God saved you. We did not call the plagues, God did. Remember who parted the Red Sea. God saved you, and now you're complaining because he saved you.
Right.
So what are we going to complain about tomorrow? Sorry, but going...
there will be complaints tomorrow.
Going a little bit back to the last passage, I think we see a continual call, a continual biblical call to only have enough,
Yes.
and to let God...
And we'll see that in the future too.
Yeah.
This passage.
But so often, especially now, churches cannot survive on enough. They have to have that cushion in the bank. We have to have that investment account.
Yeah.
We have to have that savings account. Doesn't matter that there are people that are hungry, that there are people, there's homeless, there is pain and hurt in this world that we could be dealing with, but we got to make sure we can take care of the building just in case. And I think throughout history, we see that when churches give up that just in case and actually only gather what they need in the morning and let that excess go out into the world, that God then brings in so much more. And even if it is only enough for the next day and the next day and the next day and the next day, but we have lost that ability to just gather enough for the day. And
or maybe we're not as good at just doing it.
Yeah, that's true. Not all, and nothing is a blanket statement. But
only Seth Deal in absolutes.
Only Seth Deal in absolutes. and I understand how scary that is. I mean,
Yeah.
I just looked at our bank account. It's not great. We are living on the edge, and it is scary. But we still made a commitment to give a certain percentage, right? And so we're going to do that, even though I'm terrified, you know. And if we could learn to better live that way, it is scary, but that's the trust that God calls us to.
Yeah.
And as somebody whose salary is paid by the church, I get it. Like part of me selfishly wants to say, oh, but make sure we still have enough. Right. But ultimately, that is what faith is, Faith is saying, okay, I don't know how we're going to pay our bills next month, but I see that this community needs help. So we need to help this community, even though we have an air conditioner we need to fix.
Right.
Although let's fix the air conditioner because I'm miserable when it's hot. Not that
As previously noted.
Not that there's anything wrong with our air conditioner right now, but there's the personal that we can look at this, but there's also the global the corporate that we need to also recognize.
Yeah, a couple of things on that. That like one of the ways that we talk about that is sort of a mindset of abundance versus scarcity that so many churches and all like American culture drives us towards a scarcity mindset. There's not enough. I have to keep on going. I have to keep working. I have to, whatever I have, I always need 10% more. It's that constant striving sort of thing.
Yeah.
And this is an abundance mindset of there's going to be enough.
Yeah.
And I think, I think there's a difference between giving so much that you put yourself in a really desperate situation.
So you can't light yourself on fire.
Right,
keep everybody
exactly.
else warm.
Yeah. But especially with churches, it's this sort of, we have this in reserve and we can't possibly spend it right now on ongoing ministry or vibrancy of ministry or doing something new because we have to hold on to it, which is what you said.
Yeah, is it the fear that's driving the need to hold on?
Right.
And is it the fear of not having more, not having enough? Or is it a prayerful consideration of what the ministries you need to support are? And I think that's just
where's the
question.
Holy Spirit leading us?
Yeah, that's the question that I think the church needs to constantly ask itself.
Absolutely.
Because, I'm all for logic and, like I said, let's make sure we pay the minister. Let's make sure there is a church to go back to tomorrow.
Right.
But also, if we are not serving our community to the best of our ability, it doesn't matter how much money we have in the bank.
Right.
We're not the church.
If the church were to close down tomorrow,
would
anyone in the community notice?
Yeah. Other than the members of the church.
Right. And a lot of churches, are just sticking it out until there's nobody left. But, if you see potentially that end coming, what could you do 10 years ahead of time to gracefully sort of use the resources you have to support ministries around you, to make sure that your members have a good place to go, to do it like that rather than to just drive a congregation into the ground.
Yeah.
And it's tough, right? That's a really tough decision.
Yeah. But I'm not saying any of it's easy or that there's a pat answer or that we just spend all of our money, but just thinking about fear versus faith.
Yeah.
And what faith is really calling us to do.
Yeah, fear over faith.
Yeah.
Which sounds really good until you have to do it. And then you have to actually do it. Right?
Yeah. And it's scary.
I will note, back to the section we're on, the sort of like, your complaints are not to us, they're to God. Just to recognize that this type of rhetoric has also very much been used by leaders to structure power. In this case, again, in a sort of, there's definitely this biblical motif of, don't worship me, don't complain to me, because I didn't do it. It was God.
Yeah.
This is an appropriate sort of like, I'm just in sales, I'm not in management. Like, you need to talk to the big guy. That sort of thing. That's one thing. Deflecting complaints, and especially legitimate concerns,
yeah,
by saying, well, I'm God's man, right? God told me that we had to do this. It's perfectly fine that I touched your daughter in that way because I am God's representative, or whatever it is, right? That has very much been used in abusive situations.
Yeah.
I don't think it is being used that way in this case, but just to recognize that very much historically has been, this type of rhetoric has been used in those ways.
Yeah.
And to be mindful of that and to recognize that.
I think the way that Moses reminds the people that he does not actually have any power in the situation is interesting, and sort of reminds us that he is not saying that because he says, what am I don't have the power to do any of this, right? That is a reminder that he is also relying on God, as opposed to the power tripping things that we're talking about. Yeah. Of, well, I am God's representative.
Yeah.
Moses is like, I don't have power here, guys. I'm just telling you what he told me. I'm doing what God is saying. We're going out into the wilderness together. I am in this with you. Mm-hmm. I am also hungry and hot. So I just think that's a
mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point.
Interesting thing, because I agree that there is that. I'm pastor. You can't question me.
Yeah.
But God told me that I needed a jet.
Yeah.
God said that you should send money to me. I sorry guys, I don't know, but God said it, so you need to do, God ordained that I should have millions of dollars.
Right.
Yeah. But I think Moses is saying here, I'm in this with you guys too. Who am I? I don't have power.
Well, and I think if we then connect that to that opening complaint, mm-hmm. I think this section and that section combined really has a lot to say to our sort of current role in the church. Mm-hmm. Because there very much are those people who say, oh, it was so much better in the 50s. It was, this church was full in the 70s, in the 80s, even in the 90s, right? Everything was great then. Can't we just go back there? And there is power in saying, you know what? There are things going on here that I have no control over. Mm-hmm.
We cannot go backwards.
Right. We cannot go backwards, partially because of the way that we have been the church in the 50s and 70s and 80s and 90s. There are lots of people who absolutely positively do not want to have anything to do with the church, who are afraid of Christians because of the way that we have treated people.
And are continuing to treat.
Yeah, that's right. And who are continuing. That is beyond one elder or one preacher or one person that comes in and says, I have all the answers, I'm going to solve everything for you. And, those people are charlatans. They don't know what they're
It's not
talking
true.
about. There is a great deal of truth in saying, hey, listen, God has called us to this time in this place.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough. The answers that worked in the past are not going to work. A lot of them. But let's find new ways. Let's figure out new ways to reach out. No, knocking on everybody's door in an apartment complex is probably going to scare off more people than it's ever going to attract. But there are different ways that we can do this.
Yeah.
Right? How do we do ministry in social media spaces? How do we show up for our community in ways that just say we're here to provide and help you and work alongside of you to do ministry together. And hey, yeah, sure, if you want to talk about God, we could do that. But if you don't want to, that's fine too. Just come hang out, whatever it is. Sorry.
No, that was great. And also just a reminder that as the Israelites had this nostalgia
Yep.
to the past, we have that nostalgia for when the pews were full, but we are forgetting the very real damage, trauma that has caused the pews to not be full now.
Yep.
And the people we are completely skipping over the people that were not invited into our doors, people that did not feel welcome. And that nostalgia, that yearning for the days when the church was full. I would love if our church was full, but I don't want to go backwards. I want our church to be full because of what we are doing now, today, not because it was socially expected for you to be at church.
Right.
Not because you were making deals with people in the pews, not because that was a social standing. I want our church to be full today because people feel loved and cared for and feel the community and feel welcome and walk into our doors feeling the true deep sense of God's love and God's care for them as a child of God and our love and care for them as children of God. That's what we should be doing. We should be looking forward to what can be, not what was.
Yes.
And that's a hard call because to get there, we gotta be just picking up manna every morning, right? And quail every night. VBS throwback. So, yeah, just that reminder.
Speaking of quail every night.
Quail every night.
Section 4, Exodus 16, 9-12. I'll give you meat. Then Moses said to Aaron, say to the whole congregation of the Israelites, draw near to the Lord, for God has heard your complaining. And as Aaron spoke to the whole congregation of the Israelites, they looked toward the wilderness, and the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. The Lord spoke to Moses, I have heard the complaining of the Israelites. Say to them, at twilight you shall eat meat, and in the morning you shall have your fill of bread. Then you shall know that I am the Lord your God.
The reminder that I am the Lord your God, not the Lord of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, or whatever that, not the God of your ancestors. I am your God. I am here. I am providing. I am. I am that I am.
Yep.
But I'm your God. And I am providing for you.
Right now. The material provision right now.
It's happening here now. And again, just God's love. God's like, okay, bringing you out of Egypt wasn't enough. Parting the Red Sea wasn't enough. Bread isn't even. Let's make sure you also have quail. Like, just that God's ability to put up with our crap. Right?
Yes. It's
I mean,
amazing.
it is a parent loving their child.
Uh-huh.
Like, it's as exasperated as God must be with us. It's like, okay, here's your manna, here's your quail. Go take a nap.
Well, and I hadn't really clocked until this reading the direct answer to what they were saying.
Mm-hmm.
Remember when we sat around the flesh pots and we ate our fill of meat and then we ate our fill of bread?
Yeah.
God's like, okay, you're not going to go back there, but I'm going to give you meat and I'm going to give you bread. I'm going to give you what you asked for. It's going to look different than what it did before. I'm not going to let you go back to that, but I'm going to give you that thing in a new way.
Yeah. It was, however, not cardboard wafers. Just saying.
Yeah, it's true.
Communion wafers.
And it's interesting, the glory of the Lord thing here. They looked toward the wilderness, which is interesting, right? To the place of the wild place, right? The place of chaos.
Yes, so that chaos.
The untamed
chaos flowing over.
The tohu vavohu. And this is where the glory of the Lord shows up. And the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. I heard a thing very recently talking about so in Exodus in particular, we don't have it right here, but it's alluded to here. The sort of idea of God showing up in a pillar of cloud during the day and a pillar of fire at night. And that likely is a sort of very direct reference to the way that the temple would have looked. Because during the day there's fires going all and sacrifices. So if you look up to the Temple Mount, there's going to be this pillar of fire always sort of rising. And at night, there were torches that were lit in the Temple Mount, in the temple courts, and inside the temple, all like 24 hours a day. And so in a lot of places where, you know, all of your light is torches and candles and lamps and that sort of stuff, in the middle of the night, you get up. Where do you see light? It's up there. And you see this sort of big bunch of light in the temple. And so as they're telling these stories, they're using this imagery that would remind their readers of the temple and the presence of God in that particular place and how it's sort of connected to how God appears in this story, which is kind of interesting. All right. Go on to the last one. Yeah.
Section 5, Exodus 16, 13 to 18. Enough for everyone. In the evening, quails came up and covered the camp, and in the morning there was a layer of dew around the camp. When the layer of dew lifted, there was on the surface of the wilderness was a fine, flaky substance, as fine as frost on the ground. When the Israelites saw it, they said to one another, "What is it?" For they did not know what it was. Moses said to them, "It is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Gather as much of it as each of you needs, an omer per person, according to the number of persons, all providing for those in their own tents." The Israelites did so, some gathering more, some less. But when they measured it with an omer, those who gathered much had nothing over, and those who gathered little had no shortage. They gathered as much as each of them needed.
Nice.
And the note is 16:15, or it is manna.
Right. Hebrew for what is it is literally manna. 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 Yeah, it's manna. It's manna. It's what is it? Manna.
Sorry.
Manna. Oh, I wonder if that's a connection. Anyway. Manna. So
Muppet Show.
the evening, you got the quails. And that's an interesting one because quail it's a hardy bird. They're thick. And they're not that hard to catch. So it's kind of this like
here.
Just
grab a bird.
Grab a bird, yeah. So there's that. So they have meat. And then this stuff. Yeah, manna stuff. And they gather it up. Right? And they go, Manna, what is this? And Moses says, it's the bread that the Lord has given you.
They're like,
it doesn't look like bread. Right?
Really? Have you seen what this stuff is?
Yes. We get in another place that like they would take it and you could boil it.
I thought it was like mixed with something, but
it was made. Yeah, I don't know. There are apparently a couple different ways
that word means what you think it means.
Yeah. That they could prepare it.
Are we looking at the same thing? But it strikes me that this was easy.
Mm-hmm.
It was easy. God provide. All you had to do is reach out your hand.
It's right there.
It's right there. And how often do we make it hard when it's easy? You have these people who are out there gathering more than they needed, making it harder on themselves, getting more, doing more labor, when you just had to take what you needed.
Yep.
And move on.
And in fact, so there's this bit that said,
and if you gather too much, then it suddenly was gone. Yeah.
The Israelites did so, some gathering more, some gathering less, but when they measured it with an omer, those who gathered much had nothing over, and those who gathered little had no shortage.
Yeah.
And initially, I, like, growing up, I always thought, well, yeah, obviously, the bigger families, they would gather more, and the smaller families would gather less, right?
Yeah.
But it seems to be that the jerk who's like, oh, I'm just going to get a whole lot of this,
all
right?
Of this. I'm bulking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, also that person just has an omer a person.
Yeah.
And then the other person who, is old and can only gather a little bit, they also get an omer a person, right?
Yeah.
Everybody just gathers exactly as much as they need.
Yeah. Or is left with what they need.
Right.
Because God gives us what we need.
Yeah.
He does not always give us what we want or more. Sometimes we only get what we need to wake up the next day.
Yeah.
And then collect again. And then collect again. Sometimes God fills our cup and it overflows.
Right.
Sometimes God fills our cup to the bare minimum. I got just enough spoons from God to get through today. And that's okay. That's what I needed to get through today, and I made it through today.
Yeah.
And then tomorrow I'm going to get a few more spoons. And sometimes I don't feel like I have enough spoons, but maybe that's because I'm trying to do too much.
Right.
God's like, yeah, I gave you the spoons you needed. You don't need that extra stuff. Stop. Stop doing those extra things. Stop taking on that extra job. Yes, you don't have enough spoons for all of that. And that's okay because you didn't need to do those things,
right.
Even if you feel like you do. And even if somebody else is telling you that you need to. God gives us enough. And sometimes we need to step back and realize what enough actually is.
Yeah. And how much does, back to that sort of faith and fear thing, how much is that of that wanting to do more than we can is... Again, that sort of like gig economy, like you just gotta always be hustling to bring in more and more and more, so that there's like we're creating this false abundance.
Yeah.
And really, it's just do what you need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not saying like do the bare minimum.
Right.
That's different. This is saying do what God is calling you to do.
Yeah.
Use what God has given you instead of trying to overexert yourself. Are you that person at church that has their fingers in everything and takes on everything because you're afraid somebody else is not going to, or you're afraid that it cannot happen without you? And as a control enthusiast, I understand this. It is hard for me. We just had a discussion about grocery shopping the other day. I struggle to let somebody else do the shopping. I like shopping done in a particular way. But as we were discussing me taking on another show or another job, I have to relinquish that responsibility. I have to relinquish that responsibility and trust that God is going to fill that role. Are you setting yourself on fire to keep somebody else warm? Right? Are you faithfully doing the things God's called you to do with the spoons that God's given you? Or are you doing so much because you are afraid that it's not going to get done? And also, sometimes it might not get done. And maybe, just maybe, that's God's way of telling us that thing didn't need to get done anymore. It's a scary thought, too.
Yeah.
Right.
And
that is not to say, just want to clarify that. That is not to say that we do not love and are grateful for those amazing people in our churches that do so much.
Right.
But that is a reminder to you to take care of yourself and remember that part of trusting in God is knowing when it's okay to say no. And God might be telling you, hey, somebody else needs to step up. I'm going to call somebody else. I'm going to make sure it gets filled eventually or whatever. But sorry, I just wanted to make sure that
No, that's good. Because churches can easily overuse people. And yeah, there's a fuzzy line, unfortunately, between, giving what you can and then giving too much. There's a lot there of using up volunteer hours, of underpaying paid people, of all of those sorts of things that we can pretty easily fall into. And so just being aware again. And part of that is the motivation. Are you doing this thing because you have a deep desire?
and a deep sense of call.
Yeah. To do it. You have a passion, you have skills in this. Are you doing it because you want people to like you, or are you doing it because whatever? There's lots of different reasons. And some are healthier than others. So
yeah. And just that this idea of manna and quail can be applied to so many things personally and communally and globally. But that the overarching idea, the overarching, I think, reminder, the overarching thing that we need to take away is that God is providing and will provide. And sometimes we need to get out of the way and let him do it, let God do it, and just take what we need and just give what God's calling us to give.
yeah.
But that it is God that sustains, that it is God that provides. And we have to sometimes get out of the way to let him do that, to let him work.
Yeah.
Let God work. I'm really, really trying to stop my use of the male pronouns for God unless I'm talking about Jesus. So just it's 40 some odd years of my life.
It takes a while.
But
well, and this give us this day our daily bread is such a it is a radical, revolutionary statement. Because what it is saying is, give me what I need. It is a daily reminder that I don't need to take more than I actually need. And then the next bit is to forgive us our debts, right? And that is a intentionally economic statement, right? And if somebody owes you something, forget it, right? Let it be. Back to this sort of the Deuteronomic vision of, this is what a just society looks like. If you have more than somebody else, you are morally obligated to provide for them. If you have a field, don't harvest all the way to the edge to make sure that there's enough for the people in your community who don't have fields in the first place or had a rough year. And if they don't pay you back in 7 years, wipe away the debt, right? It is a world in which there cannot be generational poverty and there cannot be generational wealth. And that's not the world that we live in. And as much as some folks talk about, a biblical worldview and how we should be living according to those standards provided in the Bible,
somehow that never gets quoted.
Yeah, that's so weird.
So weird.
And bringing in, and I have no earthly idea why this is not contained in the pericope, but the next bit is about Sabbath. Well, there's the consequences, right? So after this idea that everybody gathers what they need, then there's this sort of anecdotal story of the people who gathered what they needed for one day, and then maybe they didn't eat it for that day and they left it over for the next day. Because what if God doesn't provide manna tomorrow? Then it grew worms and or maggots and gross, right? And this was again everyday occurrence until the 6th day, and then miraculously, again, no matter what they did to gather, they gathered twice as much, and on the next day there was no manna on the ground, but what they had gathered the day before was okay. It was fine. You could eat it. And in fact, there were people complaining, "Hey, there's no manna," and Moses is like, "Well, check your manna box because it's okay." And part of this daily bread is also every 7 days the ability to rest and not have to gather. Walter Brueggemann of blessed memory, I think I brought this up a couple times ago, but wrote this, I don't know how many books, 300 something odd books, but one of those books was Sabbath as Resistance. And the basic premise of the book is that in a specifically capitalist world where we are told constantly to keep striving and keep going and get more and more and more and more, and you can't possibly not work on Sabbath or one of those days, because what if you don't survive? What if there's not enough? That to just take a day and not have to do something is an act of resistance, is to say, I don't have to hustle this day. some of our Reformed Jewish siblings talk about maybe you do something that day. The point of doing something on Sabbath is that it doesn't lead to anything, right? You're not learning a new language or picking up a new skill or whatever. It's just doing something for its sake, right? You paint a painting, not so you can sell paintings, but just to do art. I just actually my cousin just did a TED talk apparently, and his point was about that it is good for our mental health just to do art, to be creative. And our culture tells us that don't quit your day job if you can't sustain a life on that art or whatever, it's not useful. And he made the point of, well, very few people are Olympic athletes, but that doesn't mean that exercise is not useful, right? Just because you're not going to be at that level doesn't mean that you can't participate in this.
Yeah.
But that this gift of Sabbath, especially for people in the story who have been enslaved, to the people it's likely being written to who have just come back from exile, to say, you know what, every 6 days, just take the day off. You don't have to strive, and there's gonna be enough.
Yeah.
You're gonna be okay. You'll have your daily bread.
Yeah. But also recognition that there are a fair number of people, because of the society that we live in, they are not able to take that Sabbath.
Yeah.
That, I mean, I was just talking with a teacher the other day, and she's part-time, and so she's they're struggling, and she was asking me about the thing had gone out about another group on campus needed some assistance, and they were like, we're willing to pay. And she's like, do you know how much they pay? Because if it's this much, I'll do it. But if it's not, then, I'm, but we're really struggling. And, that there are families out there that don't feel, and rightly so, cannot take that day, because we do not live in a society that allows for that, because we do not live in that society, which is why society should look like the society that God calls us to. But because it doesn't, there are those that I can't not work on a Sunday because I can't pay my bills. I can't. I can barely pay my bills as it is.
Yeah.
Or Saturday, or you know.
Right. That. Thank you for that.
But just a recognition that they should that which almost sounds like a going back on my earlier statement about trusting God and all of that.
Right.
And it yes and no.
Yeah.
Because it is a reminder that we also live in a broken society.
Yeah.
And so I think very strongly that churches as a corporation, as the are called to that level of faith. I think on a personal level, we also have to recognize, yes, we're called to faith and all of that, but there is also the hard reality of the society that we live in, and the lack of provision for those that are struggling.
Yeah. And back to this was a previous conversation that we had, but we don't live in a broken society.
Right.
We live in a society that is structured in a very particular way that makes sure that people cannot live. And that's part of the recognition of the deep theological brokenness of our world and specifically American culture. One of the meta goals for the Matthew 25 initiative of the Presbyterian Church is to eradicate systemic poverty, to really look at the systems that we have created that make it so, you're right, people are on the margins and they cannot take that day off. I remember in one of my daily prayers, I had said something about, when you go out to eat on Sunday after church, right? There is a person who is serving you. They have to work that day. It's not unlikely that they have to work that day. Yeah. So how do you act as a Christian person giving them a tip, right? Having worked in food service and specifically as a waiter, I can tell you that the more visibly people prayed before a meal in a restaurant, the smaller my tip was going to be. And that, again, back to the reason why people have some problems with us as Christians, right? It should be that we are generous. If we have the means, that this person who's literally serving us, we should be able to help provide for.
Yeah.
As we also are working to create a situation in which their minimum wage isn't $2.15 because they're going to get tips. Who make sure that the minimum wage is not the same that it was in 1992, to make sure that we are structuring a society. If we're not going to, we complain out of one side of our mouths that parents are not around for their children, and create a society in which a family cannot survive on one income. Right? There are big structural issues that we really need to deal with in this stuff.
Yeah. And those are the issues that we as Christians should be taking up.
Yeah.
That if we really want to be calling down a biblical society, that why is that not the issue? Why is eradicating poverty not the issue? That is the heart of a biblical society.
Well, you're right. But that one lady tied for third place to a person who was born as male.
Right.
So, right. Yeah. So that's obviously more important.
Because in the Bible there was that whole wait.
Oh, that's not
in there. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anyways, so yeah. So this is a test, right? Provided by God.
And much like Jacob, are we? Oh wait, no. Who was it? It was Abraham. Are we? Yeah. Have we recognized the test and are we passing?
Yeah. The rest of the story is these people do not stop complaining.
God really should have just turned the car around.
God threatened it. There are multiple times when God says literally, quote,
turn this car around.
Moses, I will turn this car around. I'm going to start a new people from you. I've done it before. I'll do it again. But these people are so stiff-necked, right?
And yet he doesn't. And yet right. God doesn't. God loves us through it.
Right. But part of it is also like the whole point of the story is that God says, here, I want you to do this. And the people constantly do exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
They wander in the wilderness for 40. They get to Sinai. They receive the law. They build the tabernacle. They wander around in the wilderness for 40 years, partially or they get to the promised land and they don't want to enter it because it's big and scary. And so they wander around in the wilderness. God makes them live to death. And that generation that made that decision dies out. And the next generation comes back. Again, in the context of when this is probably all coming together, it's the exile generation, most of which did not experience being brought out of the land to Babylon. They have grown up in Babylon and they are coming back. They've heard stories about what this was like. And then really foreshadowing should be in this spot. Just to think forward to next week. Remember how I said sometimes we skip a lot? So we skip the Deuteronomic history. We skip to 1 Samuel. So Moses brings the people to the promised land again. We have Deuteronomy, the second telling, an explanation again of what Torah, the law, is. That is Torah. Those are the 5 books, Pentateuch. Then you have Joshua, who brings these people into the land. This is sort of battle campaign. This is dividing the land up. Then you have a period of the judges, who are these sort of warrior judges who rise up in times of great turmoil as there's sort of this ongoing conflict with the other Canaanite tribes. Eventually, the people get tired of that. They ask for a king, and this is a refrain that comes up in Judges. Gideon. They tried to make Gideon a king, and he says, "No, you should have no kings, but the Lord should be your king." We get to the book of Samuel, and we are starting with the titular character. Samuel is sort of the last of the judges and the first of the prophets in some ways. Moses is kind of the first of the prophets, but still. This is the beginning of now more united tribes, these 12 tribes, more or less united, and moving towards a kingdom with Saul and then David. So we skip quite a bit of content there. The book of Ruth is set in there during the time of the judges, stuff like that. So that's kind of the rest of the story, bringing us up to where we are next week. And part of that is this history, right? This story of these people. One of the themes is, right, here is Torah. Here's a picture of what a just society should look like. Here's a picture of, here are tests of, like, you just trust me. Just do this. Just follow the instructions. And the people just not. Over and over, making bad decisions, God redeeming those decisions. Yeah. So, which brings us to that'll preach. Like,
yeah.
Do you have more thoughts?
I don't do a kid's sermon anymore. So,
yeah.
No, I think really we're going to talk about trust and faithfulness and what does it look like to just take enough? Mm-hmm. What does it look like to give and to share? And to have faith, to have faith that God will provide. What does that look like in your life? Because we don't have to go gather bread in the morning. But like what I think I would be interested to hear from the kids. What are things that they maybe need to be more faithful about? Not more faithful, but just like what are the ways in which having faith and trust in God, are there things that they can see in their lives that they have to trust God for? And I don't know if there'll be any answers there. But just helping them to see that this is a story about faith. It's a story about trust. It's a story that reminds us that much like the Israelites, God provides for us every day, and we just need to trust Him. We just need to trust God, and we just need to have that faith. So, I mean, I think for us, this is going to be a pretty simple. There's a deep lesson, but it's not. I think it's a pretty I think that lesson is deep.
Yeah.
I think the picking it out from the story is pretty easy. It's right there.
Yeah, it is.
So
you just have to pick it up in the dew every morning, and
it's right there. So.
I'm gonna probably go pretty full prophetic critique. That this has a lot to say about our economic system. This has a lot to say about the way that we live our lives. Specifically bringing in the sort of World Communion Sunday, that there's this sort of gathering of bread and this daily bread that is a part of this story, and this bread that we eat around this table. But part of that is also recognizing that we are not the only ones who eat this around this table, right? We are sharing in this meal with people who are eating it in Gaza City and Aleppo and Kyiv. And we are eating this meal with alongside of people who are really truly starving. We are eating this sort of just snack size sort of symbolic piece of bread when people in our communities literally are starving. As we live in a culture that allows for people to be starving, despite the fact that we have way more resources than are necessary. So not sure how that's all gonna work together in a sermon, but probably gonna step on some toes. So there you go.
You don't weigh very much.
What are you preaching? I would love to get your comments. That'd be a fun thing. You can comment, share, subscribe. Again, seeing a lot more sort of interaction on Substack, which is great. That's a great place to be connected. I've also been sending out liturgy, and I do a Star Wars style scroll, like opening scroll sort of thing to sort of catch us up on the story. So I've been sending that out on Substack as well. So definitely check that out if you are able to. There is a thing available for a paid subscription. And when we are ahead of time, then we'll send these out ahead of time. You can also watch on YouTube and listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And
and just engage. We want to hear your thoughts, even if you disagree with us.
Yeah.
Even if you don't like us, it's okay. I can take it. Well, maybe. I don't know. I feel like they hurt pretty easy, to be honest.
I could take it.
You can take it. And please bear with us over the next couple of weeks as we have some major life changes in the works. So we are going to do our absolute best to stay on top and not get dragged under. But yeah, we've got some major irons in the fire, and we're trying to work ahead so that we don't get too caught up. But also, we also have daily jobs.
Yep.
And not related to I have a daily job not related to ministry. So, well, it's a ministry, but it's a totally different kind of ministry.
Yeah.
It's a ministry with 5-year-olds.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Callie also says thank you.
Oh, Callie also says hi. Bye.
Bye. I'm just waiting so that, because you always tell me I talk too soon.
Oh, do I?
Yeah.
Oh. You were not talking too soon.
I'm gonna laugh. Okay. Greetings and welcome back to Tail the.
Uh-oh.
Wait.